is the Mobile Tech Podcast, brought to you by worldpodcasts.com. Now here's your host, Tech Girl, Miriam Joire.
Hi, and welcome to the Mobile Tech Podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Joire, and today is Wednesday, February 27th, 2019. We're still at MWC in Barcelona, Mobile World Congress, and I have a couple of guests here on the show for a little mini group podcast. On my left, super soccer player, Nicole Scott.
Mobile Geeks.
On my right, super rugby player, Matteo Doni. Hi, everybody. How's everyone?
I'm good. Feeling a little tired after the OnePlus party last night, but pretty solid, actually.
Yeah, that was a pretty epic thing. I didn't stay for the whole thing. Did it degenerate into shenanigans towards the end?
It kept going pretty late, yeah. But I avoided the second bar and peeled off and went home.
That was probably the wisest decision you made in the evening.
I also decided to go because I had some work to finish. Anyway, lots of fun. But we're not here to talk about fun. We're here to talk about other devices and things we saw. So if you listen to the previous episode that was recorded 2 days ago with Michael Josh of Gadget Match, we covered a lot of the press conferences and briefings. So I want to maybe start with asking you two, which thing stood out for you?
From the launch days, I would say...
From anything.
From anything. I mean, obviously the foldable phones are the hot topic. For me, actually, one of my big revelations of the show is I thought, why is Sony still making phones? This is ridiculous. They should just stop. From taking a few... From taking a few meetings and then kind of understanding actually what Sony's doing is pretty important in the industry, even though I think their phones should stop. But they should keep making them because it is important.
So you can't leave us like that. Now we need to know what you mean by that.
So, like, when we look at 5G, right, because that's the big thing of the show, like, honestly, it has nothing to do with consumer tech, really, yet. No. Like, the battery life is ridiculous. The phones are going to be hot. There's literally nowhere to use it. That's real. But if you look at the future of broadcast journalism, right, we're all pumping through LTE, right?
Yeah.
And this will change when we go to 5G. We'll be able to do real, true live broadcasting in 4K, really good quality. And what Sony presented actually at their presser, besides the stupid phones that I think they should stop making, were stupid phones that have a really good ability to handle live broadcast, right? From the fundamental software that Sony's putting in, that like the color grading and the live capture and like all of these little things that like tend towards like, hey, if we're going to really start to use our smartphones as full broadcast tools, which we as mobile geeks, but like all of us as mobile,
mobile geeks.
Yeah, as mobile geeks, these are the things that we want in our lives. And yeah, we are prosumer, but this is like we're the thin edge of the wedge for the future, right? So,
I mean, we've basically been doing it, adjusted to 4G speeds for a while.
Yeah.
And now we can probably do it full on. And I think it's interesting you bring that up because I think there's another trend that we're seeing is that the constant rapid evolution of the smartphone camera into a real usable news gathering device. This is my first year, starting with CS, where I'm no longer primarily shooting with a mirrorless or point and shoot or DSLR. So I'm actually shooting with my phones. I'm doing all my video on the Pixel 3 XL because it supports external mics and I use a little lav mic and it has great stabilization. I do it at 1080p and then I do almost all my photos with the Mate 20 Pro and mostly, believe it or not, in tele mode because you can pull back and get that kind of really cool depth of field going on. It's a little harder to stabilize and it's a little less sensitive to low light, but I find that in most settings, like the show floor, it's just fine. Takes a bit of color correction, but again, that's easy to do in the app on the phone. Like I fire up Google Photos and I'm good to go. So to me, I think you're right. You're hitting something where I feel like maybe a year or two from now, a lot of people are just going to be able to just use a phone for everything.
Yeah.
Like journalists.
Yeah, like journalists. So, I mean, it's a prosumer thing, But at the same time, when you look at everyone else in their 5G phones, nobody's saying anything that I'm interested in. I'm like, oh, great. I can watch Netflix more like easier. I can just download it offline when I have good connectivity, right? So like, there's like just tons of stuff that like I think the consumer is not ready for this discussion. Period. Right. And then presenting us 5G handsets is dumb. So like, I was like really mad. I was like, why is everyone showing me this when it's just going to be like a battery drain and too hot?
It seems that every presentation announcement this MWC has been peppered with, would you like some 5G with that? There's 5G everywhere, and we've been actually filming all the different 5G logos around the shop floor, and we could have hours and hours of 5G, 5G, 5G. 5G is exciting for the businesses, for the B2B side of things this year. It's going to be years before consumers will be impacted. Even us as tech journalists, it's great having 5G, but when will it actually be available to us is the question. And it's unlikely to be another couple of years, in my view.
At the same time, I'm coming away from MWC much less skeptical about the viability of 5G. Like, we've been kind of like, I used the word propaganda in the previous show. Maybe that's excessive. But we've been kind of like told over and over again that 5G's rollout is going to be different. And then it's going to be, the devices are going to be better, and there's going to be more operators and carriers, and they're going to be, it's just going to be quicker and better and faster, and battery life won't be impacted as much and all that. Now, we haven't proven the battery life yet. That's something for us to test. But I'm impressed at the phones, at the devices. Maybe not the hotspots, but like there's at least 4 or 5 phones on the show floor that have 5G certified phones, most of them using Qualcomm Snapdragon X50, and they look honestly no different than a 4G LTE phone. I was not expecting that. Qualcomm kept saying, well, we can make it as good, as small, as light, as thin, and I was like, I don't know. I'm seeing these things you're showing us, these millimeter wave antennas, and where are you going to put them in the front of a phone if you want a phone that's bezel-less? And somehow they're doing it. Now, I'm not sure that all the phones we've seen on the show floor support millimeter, which is the tricky part of 5G. Some of them are probably just sub-6, but I know for sure that the Galaxy S10 5G, for example, that I did a hands-on with, by the way, check out my video in the show notes, is got millimeter wave. And I'm like, where did they put the antenna in the front of that thing? It's all screen. It's kind of crazy. So I'm very excited about the fact that it's actually kind of happening. Like this rollout is definitely more operators. It definitely has more devices, and they're more polished. And hopefully, if battery life holds up, I think, for early adopter tech savvy folks, the kind of people listening to the show, I think it's, if they get 5G in their market early, then they can benefit from it. And maybe us journalists can start benefiting from it. I'd love to next year at MWC be on a 5G network and do a lot of stuff I'm doing now on a 4G network. So I'm actually coming out of this show going like, wow, okay, 5G is not that far off and convoluted as I expected. I mean, and that's based on my 10 years ago, my experience with 4G, which was really, really crappy with the HTC Thunderbolt and Verizon, okay? And I mean, I'm not blaming HTC or Verizon or Qualcomm for this, but it's just, clearly they learned their lesson, they've done something about it. And then, at the same time, you got Huawei doing 5G, which we obviously don't know much about, but I think that's interesting to see. MediaTek's doing sub-6 5G as well. I visited their booth yesterday.
I'm actually very upset that people are saying the word sub-6.
Really?
When I I'm like, please, yeah, please. I was like, please just stop. Like, let's get 5G out before we start talking about sub-6.
So do you mind explaining what sub-6 is, just to clarify?
Well, I think this is the thing. We need to have this conversation for people who don't know, because I think I think it's important to have that word and distinguish it, because sub-6 is basically just LTE on steroids.
So it's your HSPA plus of 4G.
4G.
In a way. I mean, I'm not saying that, like, it's not what AT&T is calling 5G or whatever they're calling it, BS crap. I'm talking about, it's way more complex than that. But what really, like, the millimeter wave technology we're seeing that's been developed specifically for over 6 gigahertz 5G is technology that's going to redefine the way we transmit and receive radio waves for the next 50 to 100 years. This is a major shift. Like we're leaving a block of time where we were doing digital radio a certain way, and we're now pivoting to a new way of doing radio. And so to me, sub-6 is that, even though the word is terrible, the phrase, we need a better consumer approach to this, but people have to understand that their phones with 5G may or may not do one or the other, and may or may not do both. And that there is a big distinction in that essentially the sub-6 is just going to give them definitely lower latency, higher bandwidth, better speeds. But it's just basically like cranking the volume to 11 on LTE, right? And whereas millimeter could potentially be like, we're talking gigabit, like real gigabits,
like new forms of consumer behavior, new business models, fundamental changes in our economy. Like 5G is a fundamentally really.
But the
important.
thing is, we don't have the use cases. Yeah,
and that's fine, but don't call it sub-6 in the meantime.
I'm actually quite worried about this.
I like it. I mean, I like that you're mad about it.
Don't like it.
I'm quite worried about this because at MWC, we've been convinced that 5G is coming. They've told us about this. The problem is the infrastructure behind that. So 5G is the technology we have from the antennas, speaking to devices, speaking to other devices, to other antennas. The issue will be the infrastructure, getting that backhaul, those fiber optic cables to the antennas themselves. It's all very well having 5G, but you need to have some pipes to pump that data to and from. And a lot of countries, a lot of private corporations have not invested in that backhaul. We're coming to the point where, for example, in the UK, it's becoming really creaky. They need to invest more in the backhaul to get the data there. You can have perfect 4G reception, but only, say, 5-6 meg download because we don't have the backhaul to serve the amount of demand there already is. Are those corporations, are those governments going to invest in the backhaul to get the data there? That's the big question.
It's a really huge question, and I think a lot of markets is going to matter, and it's going to basically make millimeter wave null and void in the sense of the benefits you get. It's just going to be there for the people to see their 5G logo on their phone at that point. And I think that's what we're seeing in the US, like at least I'm looking at it from my market's perspective, but Verizon and AT&T are millimeter, and I think it's kind of like, we're not going to see...
It's fake.
I mean,
I feel like it's fake.
No, it's real, but it's not the kind of speeds we're going to expect from this technology. But we have to start somewhere. So I don't know. It's just tough. Like, I feel that I've talked to a lot of operators about this, and they've been planning even like 5 years ago when 4G was being rolled out in larger chunks of the real estate or the areas that they cover. They were already thinking of backhaul. So some of them are really ahead on backhaul. And the thing is, right now, LTE is kind of constraining the ability for multi-user to use that super fat backhaul. So now 5G is going to enable that. So we actually might see some immediate benefits, because that's the other thing. A lot of the operators who are adding 5G support to their networks are not adding an entire new cell tower infrastructure. Like, even if they're recycling the tower, they're not adding a lot of new equipment. They're just adding antennas and amplifiers, because the actual racks of equipment were 5 years ago designed to be upgradable to 5G. So the rollout, that's another reason we're seeing so much rollout. It's actually a lot easier to roll out in some ways. So I don't know. I think it's really going to be market specific, city, country, county, province, whatever, region specific as to what the performance is of 5G. And I don't expect it to be initially that great, but I feel that it's here. The devices are here. Now, of course, the use cases, right? And we don't know. Like, when we did LTE, we didn't know there was going to be Airbnb, Uber, and Lime scooters and whatever, right?
Yeah.
I'm not convinced myself that we're going to see all this stuff happen with 5G, like new stuff happen that quickly with 5G. I'm more seeing like boosted mega quick versions of what we have. Like, and the journalism use case for sure, we'll take advantage of that. And I think the reason I'm seeing that is because a lot of the real innovation is not going to happen at the consumer level. I think it's going to happen at V2V, like vehicle to vehicle. It's going to happen in factory floors. It's going to happen in areas that
industry 4.0.
Like mission critical stuff, right?
Rural outlays, like places where you don't want to put in fiber. Like, I feel like 5G is the base infrastructure for how our world becomes connected. I mean, like it's so fundamentally massive and important that we can't even wrap our little brains around like what we could create from it.
Exactly.
Or just like a smart toaster, right? It's like what we're basically seeing right now.
So I think that's totally it. And I think that for consumers, that's why I'm not seeing a big paradigm shift in the applications on our phones. I'm just seeing basically like downloading faster, uploading faster, streaming faster, higher quality content in both directions, creating and consuming. I'm seeing like some super low latency applications come out that right now are cumbersome with 4G.
Yeah.
And that's, I think, some of the differences we're going to see. And I think for that it's going to matter. I think it's going to matter for other things. Like right now when you unlock a Lime scooter, sometimes you have to wait a little bit before it unlocks. It's that kind of stuff. The latency thing is not going to affect us in the way that I think people think, but who knows?
We'll see. That shouldn't allow developers to become lazy, though.
No.
Developers should carry on trying to optimize their sites for efficiency. It's just the big risk is that this technology lets them get a bit lazy. And you speak as a developer, so there you go. Well, as a tester.
As a tester, yeah. So anyway, let's talk back to what. So for you, it was 5G has been a thing.
Yeah.
Sony. We started with Sony.
How
did we devolve into?
Just because I started with Sony and the 5G application, because I feel like they're the only ones who really nailed the consumer angle on this that has meaningful value.
So what does that mean in terms of device features? Because one of the problems that I know what Sony's done on paper, I still haven't seen the device. So the Xperia 1 is a 21:9 4K displayed triple cameraed monster beast of a Snapdragon. Is it 5G then? I don't think it is. That's the thing that's funny.
Yeah, but it's true. But yeah, you're right. But what they're talking about, the applications and so, like Sony doesn't make good devices, right? Anymore. From the biggest
cameras.
Yeah, but their software is worse than like Meizu. Like Meizu does a better job implementing their camera.
I'm talking about the camera, real camera.
Oh yeah. I have an A6300. Yeah, I love their mirrorless. Yeah.
So
cameras.
Not good phones.
Just not good phones. Great headphones.
Oh my God.
iBose might be my new dog. Great,
my
loving.
Mark IIIs are my.
Totally love. But with the phone, like you're holding it, it's long. You're trying to figure out like why, and like even though Sony has this content play with their whole media library, with their games, and so you see that it's like a vehicle for a lot of their content, but then in their presentation, because I just happened to be walking by when it was going on, and I didn't on purpose.
I stumbled upon the Sony press conference at 8:30 in the morning.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, I wasn't at the Sony conference, honestly, because I did not want to be awake this early after working a lot at night before. The fact that you were still there and you didn't go means you really didn't care. You stumbled on their press conference.
Yeah, because I was on my way to my HoloLens 2 meeting, which was like, yes.
So can we talk about HoloLens?
Oh my God.
Do you want to talk about it?
Sure.
I started touching myself. I have so many feelings.
Did not go to the press conference. I don't even know anything about it.
Oh my gosh. Let me tell you all about the HoloLens 2.
Go ahead. We want to hear about this.
All right. So it's lighter. Right, obviously. They scanned all the heads in the entire world, it sounded like, from the press conference to make sure that it was
creepy,
it's creepy. So they've also doubled the resolution, right? And kept the field of view. It's still not great with the field of view. It's wider. Not like, oh, this is amazing. But it's much better. The interaction is far superior. This is what we've actually been waiting for. So you remember on the HoloLens 1, you have to like flick your head. You're like, look, to the right. You're like, look, some kind of like having tiny seizures with your face, like flicking right, left, right. And it was sort of natural, I guess. Like, but
It's
so
dorky.
And now they have iris tracking.
Oh.
So when you're looking at a display, it will naturally scroll. If you look at text for a little while longer, I guess stare at it really hard, maybe. I don't know. I didn't get to try that part, but it'll highlight it and you can move it around.
Right.
So that's great. It has 10-point digit tracking, right? And it will actually adjust the digit points to the size of your hands. So you have bigger hands, you have smaller hands. The digit ratio will accommodate.
It fixes it.
Yeah, it fixes it. So you can play the piano, right? Because
Wow.
if it was one size fits all, you wouldn't be able to do such,
Dexterous stuff.
Dexterous stuff. So that's cool. It's got the 10-point multi-touch. Great. But the coolest thing is actually the least consumer thing. And I think it's called a 365 resolution, but basically it's the Azure cloud providing all the back-end rendering, right? So they're taking advantage of the higher resolution and the cloud infrastructure to create a higher quality artifacts within our virtual world. They showed some really cool stuff where they found that people interacted differently depending on the virtual size of things. So they have a slider, right? And so you could hear it like a zipper. Right.
Does it vibrate your head?
It doesn't, but
I want that.
But hearing the sound, it felt like
real.
in the air she was doing it. Like it felt like she was and then they had bigger buttons and smaller buttons, and the bigger button you push with more weight, and the smaller buttons you'd push with one finger, right? Instead of your whole hand. So they really played around with how you really interact with the world, and I think the 10-point interaction is a big part of that. So the price is less than the old one. I think it's $3,500.
What was the old one?
I think they said it was $5,000.
Whoa.
Yeah. So definitely not a consumer product still. It's really B2B.
Are they still gearing it at the same enterprise,
so strong B2B.
verticals,
Yeah.
B2B?
So the easiest application for people to understand, because they had a whole bunch of stuff on stage, and I was like, I feel stupid. And then the construction lady came out and was like, we made a helmet with HoloLens built in. And I was like,
This has been the dream.
We can all relate because of the Lego movie at that point. Exactly. So
That's been the dream in the industry for years. I remember Paul O'Brien. He was working with Google Glass and construction helmets for quite a while. It's very interesting to see that happen. But it's good to hear that they've not only presented HoloLens, they've got some practical applications, because the first generation was still we've got HoloLens, let's see what you can do. It was a developer thing. It was going out to developers to say, we've got this tooling, see what products you can make. Whereas here they're actually coming to us with the tooling and a problem that can be solved.
right. So did they talk about the hardware? Is it Intel still, or is it now ARM based?
Don't remember.
Because I thought the original was Intel based.
It was.
But I'm sure this is ARM based, because ARM rules the world.
It's taking over. Yes.
It's got
They definitely
to.
do.
Because I hate to say this, but I don't think Intel has a leg to stand on here.
Yeah.
They sold their ARM business back in the early 2000s. At the time, I wasn't even a tech journalist, and I was like, "That you are so effed." And people are like, what are you talking about? I'm like, because ARM will rule the world. And I could see it. And this is 20 years ago.
So the most exciting part of the press conference, I almost peed my pants for 20 seconds. When I was like, oh my God. It was when the CEO of Epic Games came out. And I was like, Fortnite for HoloLens? Fortnite for HoloLens? Oh my God, where's the Fortnite for HoloLens?
So what happened?
He just said, we're porting Unreal Engine over, and we're not here to discuss any specific game titles. And I was like, oh.
Well,
but,
if it's an engine, it opens up the doors.
It opens up the
Unreal
door.
doesn't already exist on HoloLens. I mean, that's the first thing you'd put on HoloLens.
It's true. It's really true.
Because it doesn't exist on Magic Leap.
Magic Leap.
Oh, yes.
I think
But has
it.
anyone actually used Magic Leap?
I have.
Yeah. Oh, okay.
And it's really impressive.
I had one, but I couldn't integrate it to my day-to-day workflow. So the drivers kept on screwing up. So I ended up unplugging
No, I'm not
it.
talking about the maybe I'm not using the right. What is it? The goggle one.
The goggle one with the leap
It's
attached
not
to it.
Magic
Sorry.
Leap. What is it?
Yeah. I know.
So the one with the Discman that you
Yeah,
put
the
in a holster.
Discman. You get the Discman on your. You think of the gesture
Yeah,
thing. I'm
the
talking about the AR
Yeah,
goggles that make you look like googly.
Yes.
It's called Magic Leap? Am I
Yeah,
right?
that's the Magic Leap. Yeah.
Right.
Leap is the sort of interaction.
Right.
For your
Sorry, my
So
bad.
Magic Leap, I've used it and it kind of blew me away. I have a friend who's a developer who has one that makes lent to me for a week, and I was just like, whoa. But the field of view is much wider than HoloLens. That's the thing that blew me away. And the tracking is like literally, you can put a virtual object right here, and you can literally run around the room 5 times, come back, and it's exactly where you left it. It's insanely good at tracking. I don't know how. Probably millions of sensors. It's expensive. Do they talk about any? I mean, obviously there's eye tracking now. But did they talk about any of the sensors? Like, are they using more? Are they using less? Because as technology and processing improves, we can do more with less sensors, which is why Teslas don't have LiDAR, for example, which I know is very controversial. So those of you who are going to yell right now, I'm looking at the microphone like as if my audience is inside of it. Don't yell, because as a Tesla user, I believe you don't need LiDAR. I think it's possible. It's just more, it's like computational photography. Just throw more compute power at the problem.
Tesla is excellent software. You cannot get around that.
I mean, every time I drive another car now, even a high-end one, I'm like, yeah, fit and finish. Oh, materials. Oh, design. Oh, man, like I touch the touchscreen for 5 seconds and I'm like, you suck.
So, sorry, just going back to HoloLens. So, important question. Did they demo XL running in the new HoloLens? Because that was one of the highlights.
They did
not
demo XL running in the HoloLens. They demoed a web page that you could just look at.
How many times did they mention the word Azure?
Oh, it's so many that it's hard to understand.
Because, Microsoft, I think they should rebrand themselves Azure.
And I'm sure they should take you on as a consultant, but because you're from the COTS.
I hope you're listening. I could use a gig doing that. No, I think it's interesting because, there's a huge, I love Microsoft. I love what they're doing.
Me too.
I've always loved Microsoft for the last, I would say that, especially since Ballmer left and Satya Nadella has been at the helm. Yeah. But I think that even a few years before that, they started getting on my good graces. I think, with Windows 10, with Windows Phone, for the little while it existed, their attempt at doing something, I loved it, etc. And I feel like, as a developer, Microsoft always makes the best tools. I still think that's true universally. I know the Linux folks right now inside the microphone are mad at me, but I love Linux. But the tools, I'm sorry, you can't touch Microsoft for tools.
I've been won over by Microsoft since 2015. I was speaking at a conference called DroidCon Dubai, which was sponsored by Microsoft. And for the first time, I saw Microsoft engineers on stage developing Android apps, using Macs, Googling Stack Overflow solutions on Chrome. And I said, this is a different Microsoft. What's going on? And it turned out they were mainly trying to sell Azure to power apps. They weren't trying to force everyone to use everything Microsoft. They have come up with the concept that their products and services can enable any products and services on any platform. And that's a culture change.
To me, I feel like they're doing what IBM did when they went from mainframes and hardware that was expensive to pivoting to a cloud software as a service
Except
provider.
for more successfully.
But more successfully. and I feel that, Microsoft's doing that kind of weird transition. And at the same time, look at Amazon. AWS runs the world. Azure runs the other half of the world. And that's where their business model is. It's not Windows, it's not Office. Those things are nice. And they make great Android versions and iOS versions of some of these products. And I like them, but I feel like, we have two, just so you guys don't know because you're not here with us, but there are 2 Surface devices on the table right now. I'm the Mac standout here. So I love their Surface products.
I love their Surface products. And
so I love
4 years loyal. 4 years loyal. Yeah,
wow,
4 years loyal. It's a
now.
long time.
So you haven't been won over by Huawei yet.
Do you want to know why I'm 4 years loyal though? Because if you pay $200 for the extra 2-year warranty at the end, they'll give you a new device. No questions asked, like Apple used to.
Oh wow!
Right.
Oh, wow.
So this is a 2-year-old Surface.
It's about to die.
Yeah, it's time for me to get a new one now. But that's just because I'm a tech enthusiast and I'm like, I need the new.
I've seen what you do to devices.
Yeah. Like the bottom of this one is missing some stuff. It's embarrassing.
Throw stuff around.
It's embarrassing. Let's just put this away. But it was 4 years on one purchase. So for me, Microsoft is doing the thing that Apple did initially to get people really loyal with their after sales, because they still have lower volumes than Apple. Now Apple has high volumes. They don't treat you so nice in the stores, from what I hear.
So no, they don't. It's harder. I think I want to touch on something though. MateBook X Pro new version launched at MWC, which is weird because I think last year they launched. I don't think they launched at MWC.
Yes,
for Europe maybe, but we got it in the US before that somehow. Anyway, maybe it's just because the briefing happened before. I didn't put it together last year that it was an announcement at MWC. The point is, have you tried them?
Yeah. They're making a great laptop.
It's just, I feel it's really fast.
It's a company that's in their third year making laptops, and they've got a winner. I mean, it's an amazing device. The only thing I'd say is if you work from home and you have your legs up on the sofa, and you're trying to play the Xbox whilst working from home, remember to have that webcam closed because they'll see the Xbox controller in video calls. It's just the point of view.
This happened to you, didn't it?
Maybe.
Not yet, because I don't have a MateBook X Pro. When I get back to Edinburgh, I will have a review unit and I'll be able to test that in real life.
Spoiler alert, I have a review unit. It's new in the box. I haven't unsealed it. It's coming with me to home to get unboxed soon on my YouTube channel. So we talked about Sony. So what's interesting to me about their phones, I agree that I like the design of their phones, the squarishness back in the day. Mm-hmm. That seems to have fallen off a bit now. What bothers me, there's two things that bother me about Sony phones, is that they always put they make the sensors of the cameras for almost every other phone, and they're phenomenal. That new 48 megapixel sensor that's on the Honor View 20 and the ZTE phone and the Xiaomi and the what is it? The new Vivo that's super cheap, the V15 Pro or whatever. Mm-hmm, and all of them have that sensor, and it's a really good sensor with the right software. It shines. It's like Sony somehow never puts OIS on their phones, even though they make sensors with and lenses with OIS. They somehow always. And so I'm wondering. I haven't seen the phone yet. I'm going to go right after this. But it's like, is the camera system on this phone nice on paper, and is it going to suck in real life like all Sony phones, or what?
I played around with it a little bit, and it's a great camera, but it's shy of 2019.
They're trying to protect their camera business, the dedicated camera.
Yeah, I know, but then just stop.
I know, just stop. But we've been seeing that for years because they can both coexist. You can benefit from technology you make for your dedicated cameras on the phones and benefit from tons of computational technology on your phones on the big camera. I love how Leica's embracing this stuff. The most traditional, hardcore, we make handmade lenses. They're computational photography for the win. Let's go, right? So I find that very interesting. The other thing about that Sony phone that I think is interesting, something I've been asking for a while that finally has happened, is a 21:9 aspect ratio. Now, their implementation is probably wrong because it's a 4K display and it's massive. It probably kills the whole idea I had, which is make a phone like the Pixel 3 or 3 XL and make it narrower to get a 21:9 aspect ratio display. So it's easier to hold, even though it's tall. Maybe the bottom half you can use your thumb to access, and maybe we can have how on the iPhone you have a double tap on the home button and it brings or whatever.
Everything down.
Brings everything down. We could have an optimization for Android like that, where we could have really large screen phones that are solidly in our hands, minimizing bezel and maximizing height versus width. And so, of course, they're doing that on the mid-range phones they announced, Xperia 10, which are much smaller. Mm-hmm. But I feel that on the one, it was just because we can make it a 4K display too, Yeah,
I think that's definitely a factor, the 4K, is being able to say we're the first to have a 4K display.
No, it's not the first 4K display they've done.
Not that they've done, but they've put in a phone that's going to commercially be sold.
No, they sold it commercially available. Was it the Z5 Max or Mega or Super or whatever?
Yeah.
Which markets was that on sale in, though? So I have a feeling
it was a massive phone, and it had a 4K IPS panel back in the days.
Yeah, I do remember that one, but it's true. Maybe limited run or something.
It was Snapdragon 800 or something days. We're talking about barely could be driven by the hardware that could drive it.
Yeah, and it was very much, hey, we have 4K content. Look, we have 4K devices.
Correct.
They're still just releasing features to support their verticals, and that's still what the Sony phones feel like today. it's...
Yeah.
My worry, this is very personal, about the 21:9 aspect ratio screens is, if we're doing that, they're going to kill the skinny jeans market, because I would break my ribs if I put it in my pocket and sat down.
Yeah, I mean, look, I'm not saying it's going to stick. I'm just saying, for me, when I look at my phones, the biggest concern, and that's why I love the Mate 20 Pro so much, is that it's narrower than most other phones, even though it has a huge screen and a huge real estate. I want slightly narrower, but still big phones. I don't know how to explain it. So I was like, 21:9, of course. Like, you've already gone all the way almost to 20.5 to 9 on some of these displays. I just take it one up, one notch. Use a standard. 21:9 is the standard in the movie world, so let's do it.
I just find them a little bit long. Like, I lost my Note 9 because it fell out of my pocket because it wouldn't fit. It was too long.
Oh, yeah. That's a problem for sure. So anyway, Nubia had a press conference that I had to skip because something else came up. But I don't think I missed much. I went to their stand just now before this podcast, and I played with the Nubia Alpha. And I love that they're insisting on calling this a phone, because it has... Here are the specs. Snapdragon Wear 2100, ugh, and 1 gig of RAM, ugh, and 8 gigs of storage, ugh, and a 5 megapixel camera. Now, for a watch, that's cool. But don't call it a phone. It also has eSIM and LTE and stuff.
So my take on this is, I think that it's very nice of Nubia to present what a 5G phone will really look like in the future.
Do you think this is what a 5G phone is?
I think that this type of form factor, this type of wearable form factor, is where we're going to see 5G devices go, because we don't need the RAM, we don't need the processing, because everything's going to be happening in the cloud.
I see.
Right.
Just
so
dumb terminal style.
Right. Just dumb terminal style. Right. Like I think this is 10 years out.
Oh, for sure.
You know,
but really, Snapdragon 2100 is really what makes me groan the most about this. 500 milliamp hour battery. Oh, yeah.
But
500.
Nubia's never been like...
But the exciting thing, I think, is the screen itself.
Oh, absolutely.
They've implemented this flexible screen on a bracelet that actually works, and it's gorgeous.
It's
gorgeous.
Sexy, yeah.
And I wish the design was gorgeous, though, because it's so tacky as F. It's, oh my God, so bad. It looks ugly as sin, in my opinion, the whole thing.
I think that might be a cultural thing. In Asia, that sort of style, especially the gold one, will be...
The gold one I get, yeah. I think the black one, though, is just like, ooh.
Like, this is like man jewelry gone wrong.
Well,
yes.
Also, did you manage to use the gesture navigation?
It's so bad. Like, I had to literally keep rolling my video and hope that eventually I'd get one take that would actually show it. And I'll cut all the other takes out, because, there's gesture control. So as a sensor, like, you can swipe in the air above the thing. Doesn't work very well. But I think that's just a software tuning thing. I'm sure it'll be fine.
If Nubia had said, this is a concept, but they're like, this is a real device. And
How
I'm like,
much are they selling it for?
Not sure.
Oh,
so price unannounced.
Okay.
But if you look at the Asian market, if you go to Shenzhen, you can already find very similar devices priced around $400 to $500, depending on what sort of radios or chipsets they have. The ones that you can currently buy in Shenzhen are powered by MediaTek chipsets and have separate radios and...
Right. No, I mean, look, it's cool. That's why I think the thing about this product is the flexible display, the fact that it shows what you said what the future could look like. Yeah. But I was not a product. It almost feels like it's funny because it really does almost feel like some kind of shady, Shenzhen company in a corner of one of their malls that, you just stumble on this thing. You're like, oh yeah, this is the jankiest thing ever. But I hate to say this because this is Nubia and I have some respect for them. They made some great phones and the Red Magic Mars is nice too.
The Red Magic Mars is a solid bit of kit. That's a good all-rounder. And the price is very accessible as well. It's
I have a review in it. It's also sold in the US now, believe it or not, which is kind of amazing. Because the what is it, the Nubia X or whatever, the dual display phone is not sold in the US. They said they're going to bring the next gen to the US, so a year from now, whatever.
So is that because they have a business model where they're in a way subsidized by the gaming companies that want to sell more games and they have special deals there?
I have no idea.
Well, it would be interesting to know that, because that's going to be bigger and bigger.
I mean, they've certainly cut some corners. Like so far, the things that I don't like about my Red Magic Mars is no NFC, metal back, which I'm so used to. Like even I honestly think the Pocophone F1 with its plastic back doesn't make any apologies for having a plastic back, but it's a nice plastic back, and it and I'd almost prefer that than a metal back at this point. But it's a good for a gaming phone. It's a good look. Like it has a gaming phone vibe. It's got the trigger buttons. It's got a get it game slider. Like OnePlus has the slider for notifications. This one has like you turn it into game mode. And it turns off notifications and it cranks up the clock speed. But it's cool that they have that on a gaming phone. That's very like nobody else has done that yet. I have them all right now. I have the Asus and I have the Razer and I have at least the ones you get in the US. I have the Red Magic. So it's like, I compare them. I'm like, why would I spend more on a Razer? No, I think I just buy the Red Magic Mars. Honestly, if you're looking for a gaming phone and you don't like the other thing, they cut corners on the camera. It's okay. It's fine. It's passable. It's great. But it doesn't as good of a job as like a $300 phone would. But it's not like at the $500 level, even a OnePlus or View 20 or anything else like that. So if you don't care about taking too many photos and you don't care about NFC, I mean, Snapdragon 845 for 300 and something. It's like the Pocophone. Honestly, actually, I think the Pocophone is a better deal because even though it's not a dedicated gaming phone, the camera's better. Doesn't have NFC either, though, and the other advantages.
We need to bear in mind that both the Pocophone and the Nubia products are not targeted for us. We're the afterthought. Those are devices made for the Chinese market. And they've only made a few extra to get better economies of scale in making the devices. They're just shipping them out here to try and make the brand recognized. Absolutely. It's not for us. NFC is not for us.
Totally not.
Yeah, because everyone over in Asia is all QR code. So they're like,
QR code.
It works.
I get it, but I think it's nice to have the option, especially when you have Google Play services and then it starts making I mean, I on this trip to Spain, which has now been almost 2 weeks long because I came early and drove around the south of Spain as a kind of a workation, I've paid almost exclusively everywhere, including for like a €1.50 of candy with a tap to pay, a Google Pay on my phone. It is insane how I haven't had to worry about cash, which hasn't happened like that in previous years in Spain. So I'm like, wow. And so that's why I want it.
That's great, actually.
Yeah. So, okay. After Sony, there was Qualcomm. We talked about that at the last show. Then there was Nubia. Honor had a thing yesterday, but they really didn't announce anything. It was essentially the same spiel we got at CS about the Honor 8X and the View 20 and the Fortnite 60 frame per second thing. And they did announce that if you buy a View 20, you get a discount coupon. So in Fortnite, you can have a custom outfit.
Oh, yeah.
And so I think some people are going to be happy about that. And then there was another thing. I can't remember what it was now. But a new color for the 8X, which I think was blue. I don't know.
So blue was one of the launch colors. I think it's red coming out. It's being sold outside of China.
Right.
Which is the exciting.
So there wasn't too much new there. I was hoping that maybe, nice. I was hoping that maybe they would have something because, Huawei, obviously. Let's talk about Huawei. We talked briefly about the MateBook X Pro, the new laptop. To me, the star show to me was the Mate X. Absolutely no doubt about it.
Okay. So on my video with Umit, we had a big talk about this. And so I think maybe the reason why everyone loves the Mate X more is simply because Huawei did a better job at introducing it to the press, right? Like when you get to touch a phone, when you get to have a pre-brief, when you get to have like some time with it, you're able to emotionally connect with the device and see it. The Fold is basically nowhere to be found. It's behind glass and you can't even tell what's going on.
Right.
Right. And so there are two fundamentally different approaches to foldable phones. Right. And I think that structurally, Samsung may have done a better job because they've put the display on the inside, which means it's more protected. Since it's plastic, it's going to be scratched.
That's the only thing they've done right about it.
Well, yeah. So, but the thing is, like, it's a Gen 1 product, right?
And the Mate X feels like a Gen 2 product to me.
But to me, the fact that they put it around the outside just makes it like, okay, I'm going to spend a lot of money on this and it's going to get screwed up quite quickly.
I love the simplicity of it. I love the fact that there's one display. It does three things. Open fully, close, and in close you get a front that looks just like a normal phone, full screen, and the back, you get a smaller screen, and you can use both displays at the same time to do selfies or whatever. I love the handheld grip in which they put all the electronics, USB Type-C, and the fact there's only 3 cameras, not 6. You don't need 6 cameras. 3 is good enough. And 3 cameras do everything because you can do selfies. I mean, you're going to make great selfies because you can take selfies with the main camera. It's design-wise, I feel way better thought out. And I think that, yes, to make that happen, they had to do the screen on the outside when it's closed, but that's also so that it folds flat. And it's 1 centimeters, 0.1 thick when it's closed. The Samsung's 1.6 because it doesn't fully close. And the list goes on and on and on. 5 millimeters when it's on full. Like, the thing is a masterpiece of engineering. And they were smart. They showed a case because they are aware of the issues. But honestly, I think that all these phones for the first 2 or 3 years are going to be a disaster in terms of reliability and longevity. And I'm not talking about the mechanism of the hinge and stuff. I'm sure that's going to be fine. It's the screen I'm worried about. Scratching.
Same, yeah.
Because I've seen plastic screens. They're terrible.
They're terrible. They're absolutely terrible.
And the other thing is you drop the phone.
Light bleeding, dead pixels. Yeah. Like, all of these things are real concerns for a device that's like 8 months out. Yeah. And a device that's 8 months out that doesn't even fold.
No, a device that's 2 months out for the fold.
Well, no. I'm saying, like, the plastic displays that I've had on some phones.
Oh, yeah.
After 8 months, after 8 months, you start to see these, like, degradation things.
And I actually don't think they're going to be able to have that perfectly flat thing when it's open after a year. You're going to start seeing ridges and imperfections and damage.
Which you can already see in the prototypes.
Yeah.
Right? So, but do you think, had Samsung allowed us to have more of a hands-on with it?
No, I think that the Mate X is absolutely, undisputably, technically superior.
I agree.
In every way.
Okay.
I was really impressed, more importantly, about how did they get 2 batteries that size into the device.
Because they're using their nano stuff.
They're using their nano stuff.
Graphene, whatever it is.
But those batteries are enormous. That should power the device more than the competition. They have a big competitive advantage there. I'm worried about the plastic screens as well. We've all lived through the times of our resistive plastic Nokias and so on. We know that that's going to be a disaster. It depends on how good the case is.
Yeah.
The fact that they demoed the case on stage and they demonstrated they'd thought about this product issue is great. It depends on the execution and how it actually works out with consumers.
Absolutely.
We're uncharted territories here.
What I'm excited about with this is that I feel this shows undoubtedly how much ahead Huawei is than everyone else in the phone business today. Like, that to me is the takeaway from mobile products. We had this whole discussion about 5G. That's part of it. Yeah. But the other part is that Huawei is absolutely dominating in terms of technology and in terms of, like, design. It's a much better looking product. No matter how it's made and how simple it is, I think overall it's a much better product. The Samsung thing, considering they've been working on it for 7 years, I'm like, are you serious? This is your first gen product?
I think that I'm gonna reserve judgment on which one I really think is better until we can really see how they work, right?
Yeah. Like software and user experience is going to define
it's really going to be key, and honestly, durability of the product. Because like right now, Huawei does have a flashier product, right? But like between the devices, like honestly, Samsung just has nailed like productivity and being smart. Like they're not doing things that are sexy and innovative, but right, like they're making really well thought out, useful products. Right, like I still haven't bonded that emotionally with the Huawei line. like they make great cameras, but there's just something fundamental that's not businessy enough.
To me, the Mate 20 Pro is absolutely, bar none, the best phone today, even after the Galaxy S10. Like I feel like they are just dominating in terms of their ability. Like, and if you look where they were a year ago, 2 years ago, 3, it's literally like the industry is climbing at this rate and Huawei is climbing at that rate. And I don't know how to explain it. It's like they're throwing a shit ton of money at it, I guess.
They have for the last 15 years. That's Huawei's business model is R&D, R&D, R&D. The products will come from that, but they have that enormous backhaul of R&D. And
it's really impressive to me. Like the engineer in me is like kind of blown away by the ascent of Huawei. And I am at the point where I even feel their software has radically improved in the last 2 years. I've used every Mate product at MWC as my main phone. 8, 9, 10, and 20, 20 Pro. And I'm like, they are so like, it's such a huge gap in software, in quality. It's the fastest phone I own by a long shot, and I've had it for 3 months and it hasn't slowed down. My Pixel 3 XL is a dog right now. It's so slow. And I've had it just as long. And honestly, the OnePlus is not even quite as fast as my Mate 20. And my Mate 20 is not running pure Android. It's like some kind of crazy Chinese-ified version that I've skinned because I wanted to get my pureness back. I've got Nova Launcher on there and stuff that you think would slow things down, and the thing just runs. The View 20, which is Honor, which is Huawei, is so freaking fast for $500. And that's what I'm saying. It's like I am blown away by their technological might. Now, there are many other things they don't do very well. Like, I don't like their software even now. Yeah. But I'm just saying, like, that's what I see in the Mate X. And I feel like they've, like, drawn a line in the sand. They're like, this is the line you need to achieve to be competitive with us. And Samsung is freaking the F out right now.
Samsung's totally freaking out. I mean,
Apple is like, meh.
I wrote this article actually based off of Todd's article, the Dodge who's now at CNBC. Right, so he wrote this article, the 3 things that Samsung did wrong that they copied from Apple, right? And so I was like, Todd, this is a fantastic article, but it's missing numbers and like some like more facts, right? So I actually like wrote a comment about his article, and the main thing is pricing. Right. And like when you look at the numbers for Apple, like when they adjusted their price strategy, we saw like 20 million units lower. Right now, Samsung's copying the same pricing strategy. And we're going to see the same, maybe not the same level of like 20 million, but we're going to see a big drop. And then what we're seeing with Chinese handsets happen over the last year is Xiaomi and Oppo are coming up. In a meeting with Samsung Germany, I said, well, what about these Chinese manufacturers, right? And I don't mean Huawei. Right? I said, what about everyone else, right? The ones that are coming in. And he's like, well, I owned a Xiaomi phone a few years ago, RMA, like returns and dealing with that. They can't do that in Europe because they have the 2-year guaranteed warranty, right? These Chinese guys won't be able to handle that. And I sat there and I was like, you arrogant man.
That's completely wrong.
It's completely wrong. It's completely wrong.
I've been through the process as a customer. Yeah. They have great service.
Fantastic RMA. Like really nailing. And in China, like in Taiwan, the return centers, I go there just to hang out because it's so wonderful, right? And like, I'm like, oh, it's not broken, but maybe you can clean it for me. Like, yeah, come in, have a coffee. Want to buy some home stuff? Oh, maybe, right? Like
value add.
That's awesome. Right? So, but the thing is, I think Huawei, like, though I agree with you, their phones are technically dominating and they are beautiful, especially the camera. I think that they're edging on the same mistake that Samsung and Apple are making with the price. I think we're starting to see it edge up over the last year. And I think that Xiaomi and Oppo, mostly Xiaomi, are going to come in at that really strong price point and start to eat away at all of them.
I would agree with that, but I would say especially Xiaomi and Huawei have a much more, and even Oppo, have much more thought through strategy.
Yeah.
So their main brand, Huawei, are moving into that same price segment as Samsung and Apple. But they've spun out the ones. They're not leaving their main customer base behind because Honor and Redmi and Pocophone are still there. They're still serving value to their customers, and they're not losing them because it's familiar software. Everyone knows that those brands are still Huawei. They're not leaving those customers behind. Apple and Xiaomi. Whereas Apple and Samsung are leaving their customers behind. The A series and the other series from Samsung are not competitive in their price brackets.
So in Germany and a few other European markets, Honor phones are not doing well at all because they're just too expensive.
They've moved
flat out too expensive, right? So I think that Huawei Honor are actually making a mistake right now by edging the prices up, right? So the Honor brand is not what it used to be over the last 12 months. I mean, great phones, love it. Like, would totally use them if price, but like their prices are now not reasonable compared by market comparison. And that's the thing that I always assumed, that they had that gap. But now, like in Germany, like there's no one buying an Honor, and like the entire PR team left. Right? Like the pricing strategy is just awful, and we're starting to see that in a lot of European markets. So, like, to me, Huawei is starting to make the same mistakes as Samsung. And I think that Xiaomi entering now is like maybe the right time for them to potentially dominate.
I mean, Xiaomi's got to come to the US. And I know it's not going to happen in the current climate. I mean,
I would challenge that. I think that they have a big strategy based on their partnership with Qualcomm. Qualcomm is a US company.
That helps a lot.
It helps a lot, both in technical terms with radio bands and so on, but for political terms. I think the big issue, obviously, with Huawei is that there's no real American investors in Huawei actual. That's why they're being blocked. Whereas Xiaomi and Oppo, they use Qualcomm chipsets. They won't have as many barriers to entry.
Yeah. And OnePlus is smart, by the way. They're playing that game too, right?
Yeah.
And I just want to mention them simply because they have a prototype 5G phone at the Qualcomm booth here. And I love OnePlus, but it's pretty boring. Like, it's not even a phone. It's just like a display encased in a plastic blob.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a phone in there, but it shows some cool stuff. But I was expecting, even up to until I saw it today for the first time. When they announced it, I said, "Oh, it's going to be probably behind glass, but we're going to see a real phone." And I'm sure the design's not going to be final, so that they don't give away the next design. But no, it's not even that. Like, I was expecting something like the Qualcomm dev kit we saw in Hawaii, right? Yeah. But no, it's like this weird stylized blob of a phone. It's weird.
It was interesting to also see that stylized blob is 21:9 aspect ratio.
No, but that's because of the way it's mounted in there.
Yes, it's the way it's mounted, but could that be a signal? Who knows? Our friends at OnePlus really know.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to the OnePlus 7. And now that I've seen what 5G phones look like.
When's that come out again?
Soon in the spring,
is it
3 months from now.
It's usually a spring launch. Yeah. It's summer launch, right?
So we're going to see a 5G phone that looks like all the other 5G phones, which basically means they look like 4G phones, which is great because I'm happy because I was worried.
Just a little bit bigger.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting to see what happens, especially with the US now that they have carrier agreements, to see what that means for OnePlus, at least for my market. And I love you all international people, but obviously I live in the US, so I care about 5G over there. And I'm sure it's going to be if you thought 4G was complicated with bands, I think 5G is going to be insanely complicated.
Yes.
Yeah. So let's see, what else is there?
Well, as someone who travels frequently, I love what Energizer have done.
Yeah, so let's talk about 18,000 milliamp hour phone. I've seen pictures. I need to go by the booth.
Is it a phone with a power bank attached to it, or is it a power bank with a phone attached to it?
I'm convinced in my world, it's a power bank with a phone attached to it.
Here's what it looks like when it's beside your face.
It does have a flashlight too, doesn't it?
That is beautiful.
So this is
a camera or a flashlight?
No, it's a camera and a flashlight. Yeah.
Oh my God! So we're looking at a photo of Nicole holding a phone to her ear with a phone. It's literally an inch thick.
It's over an inch thick.
Wow!
It's actually over an inch thick.
And how heavy is it?
So when you see it on so this was a non-working sample. As you can see, it was not working. But it comes with a pop-up camera which
makes it look like the outline of a battery.
Yeah, which is crazy because you're just like, really? You have this much.
It's made of metal. It has antenna bands.
Yeah, it's made of metal. It's made of metal.
Wow.
Yeah, it's super thick. Look at the bottom here.
Wow.
With the Type-C connector.
Yeah, basically they just put a gigantic battery. And they put a phone inside a gigantic battery.
Right, so it does have triple camera, and it's got the 2, flash. It's a thing to behold. It's a thing.
I'm gonna go right after this. Yeah, I'm gonna go to Sony and to.
I'm going to do the same. I think that to do the phone justice, we need to go to the food stand and get a banana for scale.
Let's do that. We should probably wrap it up, but any final thoughts on MWC? Any other products that we've seen that we didn't mention? I'm looking at my list right now, but I think we've covered
the 5G ambulance. Have we mentioned 5G?
I saw. Oh yeah, there's a 5G ambulance, but I'm not going to talk about that. I'm done talking about 5G. But you guys happy? Was it a good show for you?
Yeah, I think it was a very good show. Just to kind of realize where everyone's at with their level of discussion with 5G.
Yeah.
Like their positioning of it, and my fundamental disagreement with some of their positioning of it. I thought it was very interesting. Like, I just didn't realize that someone like LG would completely switch the timing of the launch of a product like the V50 to accommodate carrier meetings here.
Yeah.
Right.
And we didn't talk much about LG. We did on the show 2 days ago. So if you haven't listened to the show 98, the previous show, listen to it. Mm-hmm. We had a lot to talk about LG because the G8 and the V50 were announced. And, you know, it's very gimmicky, that G8 with the gesture stuff. But the time of flight camera is very interesting too.
Yeah.
And you know, the V50 looks like both of them look like last year's phones with newer specs, which is kind of sad. But LG is in trouble. I honestly think that, you know, they've been in trouble on paper, not the mobility division, but they don't seem to be trying to recover. I don't see any innovation coming from them. If they think that putting a nice time of flight camera is innovation, that's not where innovation is.
So, Nicole, which between the two is going to start making smartphones first, LG or Sony?
It'll be Sony, I think, because LG is making phones not because they have any intention of doing well in the market, but because it keeps them having a hub to their main sales, which is appliances.
Sure.
Right. And like LG's appliance division is really, really good.
And their TVs are awesome.
And their TVs are awesome.
And their washing machines.
Their washing machines are first rate. And I think that for LG to keep like them in the mind's eye of the consumer brand realm, they're going to keep making phones.
Of course.
Yeah.
And they can do it. They can lose money doing it.
And they can
Which is maybe why they're not innovating, because they maybe really don't care.
I mean,
because the fridges subsidize the phones.
Yeah. It could be, but like they did do the palm vein thing, and they have like they have.
How are you gonna really unlock your phone like that?
So
I'm not against the technology. I think it's cool, but
so I like, just to digress a tiny sec. I actually think that they might be coming out with this type of technology at the right time. I think that we can't think about the gestures as a replacement for touch. I think we need to think of the gestures as a replacement for voice. Right. So like if you start to conceptualize what our ecosystem is looking like in the future, as we've added a lot more voice control, right? Adding in like the beginnings of gesture control into these devices, like, they haven't nailed the form factor, the use case,
hovering over the screen,
not actually touching it. But like, I think that we will find specific use cases for this. And right now in the early stages, it's like, okay, this is sort of the realm of possibility. Like, let's develop on it. And this isn't going to be like, oh my God, I understand why gestures are here. But you know,
it also opens up a lot of potential to enable accessibility in different.
And that's one of the things I'm excited about on that. Accessibility, people with disabilities will really benefit from this. But I think to me, it makes more sense to see this technology on a Google Home Hub or in BMW cars, which they've been doing for a while now. And I think, or TV, exactly.
TV,
so LG has they have TVs. They should put that on their TVs. Anyway. A little bummed by LG's news. I just feel like they're not trying too hard. But hey, you know. So maybe you guys can take turns telling folks where they can find you on the internet.
MobileGeeks.com, Nicole_Scooter is my Twitter, and then Nicole Scooter in Instagram, which I'm pretty active in.
Exactly. And and you guys have a great YouTube channel too, right?
Yes, you can find me on MobileGeeks.de.
Yes.
For some reason we've held strong with German, though the videos are English.
Yes. So don't be put off by the .de. Go there, subscribe to the channel, and watch some really cool videos and hands-ons and reviews by Nicole and the team.
Yeah.
What about you?
So I'm here at MWC representing my day job employer, Skyscanner, the travel search engine. But I'm here as a pundit, opinionist for TechTravelGeeks.
That's right.
So we have a YouTube channel, we have a website, we have an Instagram account, and we just turn up at parties and share our opinions.
Fantastic.
So thanks again, Miriam, for having us. It's been a pleasure.
Do you want to share your personal Twitter and Instagram handles?
My personal Twitter and Instagram handles are the same. It's @Todoleo, Tango Oscar Delta Oscar Lima Echo Oscar.
Toodaloo.
The way you say that is amazing. Every time you're on the show, you say that. You all know where to find me. I'm at Tankgirl on Twitter and Instagram. That's TNKGRL, like the comic book character Tankgirl without the vowels. And the YouTube channel is youtube.com/MiriamJouar. So look, if you need to spell my name, just look on my Twitter. It's there, and then you can apply that to YouTube. The channel is a complement to this show, the podcast. I call it the Mobile Tech Podcast channel. And it's really unboxings, hands-ons for MWC. I have a playlist. I'll put it in the show notes of all the videos I made, stuff like that. So subscribe to the YouTube channel, tell your friends, subscribe to the podcast at mobiletechpodcast.com, and tell your friends. We're also on Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Pocket Casts, Overcast, TuneIn Radio, I think. And, you just Google it or type it and you'll find us. I also want to thank our sponsor, Audible.com. If you like books and you can't, for whatever reason, read them physically on paper or on a Kindle or something, Audible.com is your solution. They have a great selection. A lot of books get read by the authors of the book, which is really cool, because, you can read it to yourself out loud. It's just not going to be the same as getting, Michelle Obama or something reading her own book, right? But, that's the place to go for audiobooks. So they've been a sponsor of the show for a while. If you're not already an Audible customer and you want to get a deal, 30 days free trial if you go on the link in the show notes. And you'll help the podcast along. It's audibletrial.com/mobiletech. So audibletrial.com/mobiletech. Check it out. Thank our sponsor. Support the podcast and check out audible.com. Well, we'll be back next week with another show because we'll have to recap MWC. So stay tuned for that. And until then, cheers, everybody.
This has been the Mobile Tech Podcast with Tankgirl, proudly presented by worldpodcasts.com. You can visit us online at mobiletechpodcast.com.